Hello everyone, welcome to my WIP Chat. For those who don't know, WIP stands for Work in Progress, so basically I'm just going to be working on this diamond painting that I've been referring to as Sakura Temple, and chatting about stuff going on in my life, and my D&D game. You are welcome to watch, or just listen in the background. That's what I normally do with WIP Chats. It is a kit that I got off Amazon. It is 60 by 120 centimeters, the canvas. The image itself is 54.5 by 115. Little under 80,000 drills in total, 30 colors, and it's round and acrylic. And this here is my 30th section. 38th section. I can count. I have notes, I promise. I'm getting really close to finishing this. I have a total of 56 sections marked out on this, and I'm trying to do 2 a day in the month of February, because 56 divided by 2 is 28. There are 28 days in February. It's been my goal to do it all in February, and so far, right now is the 19th, and so I'm on the 38th section. Once I'm done with this section, then I'll be caught up for today, which is great. In my last WIP Chat, I had mentioned that I'd gotten a Diamond Art Club mini dazzles from Amazon. So I'm using a Diamond Art Club tray. I'm just using a pen from Amazon, blue wax, and then a museum putty that's been colored with mica powders in my multi-placer. But with that mini dazzles, like I was saying, in my last WIP Chat, I mentioned that the first time I was working on one of the mini dazzles while watching Steven Universe with my wife, and my wrists and palms started to itch, and I was really hoping that it was just a coincidence, and that maybe I had touched something else earlier in the day, or, maybe it's just like a random itch. But the next time we got time to sit down and watch Steven Universe again, I pulled it out, and within 5 minutes my wrists and palms started to itch again. So, I'm still not sure. I know that resin allergies and sensitivities are really common, so there's a good chance it's that from the drills, because they use resin drills, whereas most of the kits I work on are from Amazon and are acrylic. I don't know if that's actually what is causing it, because I've also done paint gem kits, and I'm pretty sure those are resin, and I didn't have any sort of reaction when working on those that I noticed. Obviously, with sensitivities and allergies, they can get worse over time, so maybe the first few times when I was working on paint gem, my body hadn't been reacting then, but now it is. Either way, it seems like whether it's the drills or the canvas or something else, I do seem to be having a reaction to Diamond Art Club, which sucks, because, and I'll keep mentioning this until my birthday, but my wife bought me plant delivery from Diamond Art Club by Yume Arts for my birthday. My birthday's in April, but that is a huge-ass kit. And so if I'm allergic or sensitive to something in either Diamond Art Club's canvases or drills, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna be miserable when working on that kit. And I mentioned this to my mom, and she actually, because, I'd mentioned it to several people, and they're like, well, you could wear gloves. And I was like, yeah, but gloves are uncomfortable. And they're like, but isn't itching also uncomfortable? And I was like, you know what? Fair point. But I mentioned it to my mom, and then the next day, she was coming over to babysit our toddler, and she just brought over some fingerless gloves that are fairly lightweight. They don't match. And I think she said they're technically compression gloves that she had at one point been using for tendonitis. but that she hasn't used them in a long time. So they're light enough weight that I don't think they'd bother me too much. So I might, and like they're both material that shouldn't get lint on the canvas. So I think I'll try that the next time that I have time to sit down and watch Steven Universe with my wife. And hopefully that solves the issue. I cut this section really bad. It is not... Okay. Just... Other than that, though, the other thing that's been going on in my life is we live in the basement apartment of a home. And then we have roommates who have the top floor, and we share the main floor. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. So there are 3 bedrooms on the top floor. We technically own one of the bedrooms. I mean, not own, but one of the bedrooms up there is ours. And we haven't made much use of it, because before we used to rent out the whole house. My parents are the ones who own the house. At one point, we'd been renting out the top floor, and my sister and her significant other had been renting out the basement. But they moved out. So then we were renting the whole thing, but we couldn't cover the cost of the whole thing, so we were paying like half the cost of the basement rent, and like my parents were just eating the other half, and the basement was kind of like the designated like guest space, because I have multiple siblings that live out of state, so like anytime they came to visit, it was just agreed upon that they would take the basement. But then, like, as with my parents' financial situation getting more, like, just tighter, they're like, we don't know if we can keep doing this. So they had been considering moving back into this house, and we would have started renting out the basement. And so they were, like, doing all the work to pack up their condo. And we started moving all of our stuff down to the basement, and we temporarily had a bunch of our stuff in one of the upstairs bedrooms, just, you know, like we had moved a bunch of it into the one upstairs bedroom so that we could clean the other 2 bedrooms upstairs. Oh, that. But then, like, I think it was like a week after my parents had put their condo, like, started talking to realtors and stuff, my wife's cousins texted her and was like, hey, do you guys still have extra space at your guys' place? Because we're going to be evicted. So then I quickly texted my mom and was like, have you actually put your house on the market yet? Because my wife's cousin just said they need a place. Long story short, we had already moved most of our stuff down to the basement, so we've kept the basement. They didn't need 3 bedrooms, so we've also kept one of the upstairs bedrooms that most of this time has just been sitting with a bunch of our stuff because we haven't bothered to move it, so it's just been jam-packed with random stuff that we haven't organized or looked through that wouldn't have fit in the basement apartment anyway. This is such a long tangent. I was not expecting to talk about all of this in depth. The point is that we have a 2-year-old, and in the basement we have, it's like a loft bed. We aren't using the main bed part though, but we have like a faux wall on the front of it with a little child-sized door. And so, like, under the loft bed is where our toddler has been sleeping, because it fits there. They've been just, like, on a floor bed slash mattress for a while. So, like, underneath the loft bed is where they've been sleeping. It just has, like, a faux wall on the front. But the issue is that, sure, it's dark in there for naps and stuff, but especially with me wanting to start filming and doing YouTube stuff, because I do that during their naps. You know, if they hear me up and about and talking, like, they are not going to fall asleep during their nap. And same thing at bedtime, because I'm just, like, you know, they go to bed at 8:30. Meanwhile, my wife are not going to bed at 8:30, and so sometimes they'll, like, just sit in their room and try to talk to us after we've put them to bed. So we're like, well, we have the extra bedroom upstairs, and let's try to move them upstairs. So I had first attempted this, I think it was last week. I didn't want to do it because one of our roommates works from home 2 days a week, on Mondays and Fridays. And so I didn't want to, like, start this while he was working from home, because, you know, he works from home in one of the upstairs bedrooms. So if our toddler got super fussy about being in a new room, like, I didn't want that to bother our roommate while he was working. So I was like, well, I have to start it on a Tuesday. So I had intended to start it on a Tuesday. I took all of my kids' stuffed animals up there, all their blankets. There's already a bed in that room. I took those all upstairs. And okay. I wasn't sure if I had actually started the camera. I was second guessing myself. Took it all upstairs. Took him upstairs, and I was like, hey, you get to sleep up here now. Like, you get to have your nap up here. Because normally he's obsessed with, like, going up the stairs. He always wants to... I don't even know why he likes going upstairs. Because, like, he'll just be like, go upstairs, and then we'll go upstairs, and then he'll just walk around for a bit and then be like, okay, and then just wander back downstairs. But whatever. I'm like, we gotta go upstairs and take your nap upstairs. But as soon as I, like, closed the door and started walking away, he started screaming their head off. And, like, I was like, okay, like, that's a little to be expected. This is a new experience, right? Like, change is hard. I walked all the way downstairs to the basement. Even from the basement, I could hear him screaming, and I was like, that's... And so I ended up caving, and, like, I brought them back down to the basement and let them sleep in their regular little loft bed cubby. And then the following day, our roommate ended up working from home that day. He doesn't normally work from home on Wednesdays, but he did, and I was like, well, then that's out of the question. So then I obviously couldn't do it that day, and then I didn't end up doing it Thursday either, because I knew that our roommate would be working from home again on Friday. So flash forward to this week. Yesterday, go put our kid in the upstairs room. Oh, well, right. Then I forgot. I had the idea then. I was like, well, maybe if we, like, get him some new bedding, because the bedding up there is just, like, gray and black stripes. It's, you know, it was a guest bed at one point, so pretty, like, bland, basic, as non-offensive as possible. But I was like, well, maybe if we get our kids some better, some, like, personal bedding, they'll be excited about it. And so I asked them, I was like, what kind of bed do you want? And they were like, Pokemon? So I sat with them and scrolled through Amazon Pokemon bedding listings until we found one that had Gengar on it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna order this for you, and it's gonna go on the bed upstairs. And you get to sleep upstairs now. And, I mean, they were just like, Pokemon bed. And I was like, yep, you will get a Pokemon bed. So it ended up coming Monday. So yesterday, Tuesday, I was like, you know, all day I was talking to them. I was like, you're going to have your nap upstairs today. And now that they knew what they meant from, like, last week when I tried this, they were not as excited. And I was like, but you have your Pokemon bed. But this time I was very determined. I was like, even if they cry, like, I know they're not in danger. I know they're not hurt. They don't need anything. Like, they want comfort, obviously, but, like, they're not in danger at all. And I was like, I'm gonna put them in there. I'm gonna give them half an hour. If they're still crying, then yeah, I'll go get them. So I put them in there. We have a camera in there. So, like, I walked back downstairs. For the first few minutes, I could hear them screaming, even just without the camera. I could still hear them screaming from downstairs. They eventually quieted down. I was like, okay, I checked the camera. They were still lying by the door crying. I was like, I'm gonna hop in the shower. Once I'm out of the shower, if they're crying, then I'll go get them. Hop in the shower. Halfway through my shower, I hear the main door, like the front door, open. And I remembered that our roommates were coming home early from work. And I was just like, oh crap, I really hope that, like... And, like, at that point I couldn't hear my kid crying anymore. But, you know, I'm also on the basement, so, like, I didn't know if they were still crying or not. But then still in the shower, I got a text. And I was like, I bet that's from my roommates. Like, I really hope they don't go try to pull my kid out. Because, like, they need to get used to that room. Sure enough, by the time I got out of the shower, it had been my roommate who had texted. And she was like, are you downstairs? And, you know, I just texted back. I was like, yes, I know my kid is crying. Like, I'm trying to get them used to that room. Though, by the time I got out, and, like, checked the camera, they had actually fallen asleep. But, today, though, put them down at 1. And then, you know, was planning to film today, so, you know, as I was setting up all my filming stuff, had the camera app open on my phone, and they did cry. They did still scream, but only for 5 minutes. And then they laid down, and they seem to be asleep now. So hopefully tomorrow goes just as well, if not better. If it does go well and they don't cry, like, at all, fingers crossed, then I would want to try keeping them in there on Friday as well. Because Friday is when my roommate will be working from home. So if Thursday goes well, and my kid doesn't cry too much, then I'd be comfortable, you know, having them go up there. I don't want them to bother my roommate while he's working, obviously. It's hard. It's hard having roommates. I'm also scared because they also have a baby, so, like, I'm worried that if we switch our kid to sleeping up there, if their baby, because their baby's only, you know, their baby's actually, like, still a baby. And, like, if their baby wakes up at all in the middle of the night, which they do sometimes still, I'm worried that'll wake up our kid. Because, like, normally our kid will sleep through the night. They're pretty good at that. But parenting is rough. And that tangent took way longer than I was intending it to. So, I know I said that I was going to talk about D&D stuff in this WIP Chat. And I will try, I guess. But it will probably be a little bit of a longer WIP Chat than I was intending. Because I'm shooting for like 30 minutes. I think I could stretch it to 40. We're a little under 20 right now. God. Am I really on tea already? So, D&D wise. Okay. I do D&D every Monday. And this past Monday, so this week, one of the people in our group had a date, so he was not present at the game, which, you know, that happens. But the campaign that we're running, which is something that the DM has, you know, done his own world building and created his own campaign. But there's a bunch of floating islands. We have a ship that flies between the different islands. He is being very stickler. Like, he is making us worry about, like, food and fuel and stuff, so we have to keep track of that. In a recent session, we got... Well, we are currently wanted. And all have bounties on our heads from, like, the main capital. So we had stowed away on a different ship and flown, like, nearly 200 days out of the capital's, like, main area on a different ship. We had to get a new ship. But now, like, we've all gotten, like, fake IDs, so we could, in theory, go back to the capital now with our fake IDs. The new ship that we got, it only has 25 days worth of fuel. Like, that's its max fuel capacity, which is troublesome. But we had a quest to do that was close to, like, the island that we'd been on. So we took our ship and did that quest, and we finished that quest our previous session. Or we started the quest our previous session. We finished it this most recent session, but we only had 4 days worth of fuel left, and the nearest island to us was 15 days away. We can still move without fuel. It's just a lot slower. So we're like, well, we don't really have any other choice, because even though we had talked about going back to the capital was like 169 days away. We have a compass that it points to the capital, it points to the nearest island, and then, like, when we get quests, we get, like, single-use compasses that'll point to where the quest is. But other than that, we're just kind of, we don't know. There's no map. Like, we don't know where things are. And with the nearest island, we don't even necessarily know what the nearest island is. We just know that that's the closest island to us. And we just want to hope that we can refuel there. But we were like, well, we could start heading towards the capital and, you know, travel the 4 days at normal speed and then just drift very slowly in that direction. Or we can head to the nearest island, hope we can refuel there, maybe try to get a ship upgrade to get better fuel capacity to head back to the capital, now that we have our fake IDs. So we agreed to go to the nearest island. On our way there, because, like, with each day of travel, you know, we roll for random encounters. On our way back to the nearest island, so we got the first 4 days out, and then we drifted for, I think, 3 days. And then on, I guess that would have been the 8th day, we ran into this very large, like a party ship, essentially. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll take your ship. And why am I using an Irish accent? I don't know. But they had fuel. It was a big enough ship that they could refuel our little ship. And they actually, they had like a car wash, but for our ship. And they're like, it's only 500 gold. It'll completely fill up your fuel, which for, like, the fuel costs and, like, the rest of the world, like, 500 to fill up 25 fuel slots was a good price. Not, like, crazy oh my god, we can't pass this deal up ever, but, like, it was cheaper than average. And especially since we were completely stranded with no fuel, like, we're gonna take it. But that was gonna take all day, so we had to stay on this ship, and me and one of the other members of the party just went to a spa. And the benefit we got from that spa was 77 temporary hit points that will stay there until, like, we're damaged. Because normally your temporary hit points are, as just temporary. Like, they leave, I think they normally leave after a long rest. But these, no, these ones are staying until we get damaged. So essentially the next fight that we go into, me and him are set. The others all went to the casino to bet. Alright, so next score is X. Oh, that's a loose one. But the rest of the players all went to a casino. One of them bet 200 gold, one back 1,000 on, I don't remember what game she played. One of them bet 1,000 on thumb wrestling, and won back 7,000. And then wanted to do it again, but it was against a different opponent. And the thumb wrestling, our DM has, like, based on our strength stat, and he ended up against a barbarian who decided to rage. And so the barbarian won, and he lost all 7,000 of his gold. And then our another one of them, was like, okay, well, I'll go up against you, you know, double or nothing. And the barbarian was like, okay, and put the 7,000 back on, but then we were like, well, we don't actually have 7,000 more gold to bet. And so we have a party, all of us have bounties on our heads technically, but we have one party member who has a much larger bounty on his head. So the one who had bet double or nothing was like, well, we don't have money, but we have this guy who's like, he has like a 300,000 gold bounty on his head. And the barbarian was like, okay, well, if you're offering up him, then I'll offer up my goblin butler. But then we're like, well, cool, we'll do that. You know, so he was offering up his goblin butler and 7,000 gold, and we were offering up Seth. But then we're like, it actually makes more sense for Seth to be the one who does the thumb wrestling, because he has put all of his stats into strength right now, and he has a magic item, so I think his strength is sitting at 22, which is absurd. So they did thumb wrestling. Seth won by a lot. We now have a goblin butler, which and Seth was actually the player playing Seth was actually the one who was absent this time. So, like, you know, the DM was kind of playing for him just based on what he knew his character would do. But whatever. We got the goblin butler. Our ship was finished being washed. We started heading towards the nearest island again, because now we had fuel. Got there, and I was hoping that we'd be able to get some ship upgrades at this island, because but apparently there was nothing that they could do for our fuel. But we were talking to this, like, I would describe them as a mafia family that one of our other players has connections to. Because we were like, hey, can you upgrade our ship? And they're like, no, we can't upgrade your ship. And we're like, well, we're trying to get back to the capital. And they're like, oh, well, do you want to use our teleporter? It'll cost 5,000 gold for your whole group to go. And we were like, well, what about our ship? Like, doesn't include our ship? And they're like, no, if you want us to teleport your ship with you, it'll cost 10,000 gold. And we're like, well, we only have 4,000 in party funds. But, like, technically we did have more because we earned the 7,000 from the one player had earned 7,000 from the thumb wrestling. The other player had ended up, you know, there had been some money earned in our gambling efforts. And I was like, well, I mean, we don't, but I was just thinking about the party funds. I was like, we only have 4,000, but would you take a Goblin Butler? And the DM, like, clearly was actually thinking about this and considering that this player, this NPC, probably would take a Goblin Butler as payment. But then he was like, well, technically, Seth's the one who Goblin Butler it is, so I need to call him to double check. So he called the party member who was not present. I was like, hey, I have an emergency question to ask. Hypothetically, but not hypothetically, if Seth had won a goblin in a thumb war competition, and now you guys need money to teleport back to the capital, would you be willing to sell your goblin? And this player was like, no, Zara has a giant bird, Jack has a giant eagle. I'm keeping my goblin. So we did not end up selling the goblin, because he's keeping his goblin. But the players who had gambled were willing to pitch in to get us all back to the capital. Though we're not actually going to the capital itself, we're going to a nearby island. Or actually it's another, like, city ship that we're gonna teleport us to. But to get our ship through the teleporter, they need to shrink it down. And they said that will take 30 days. And we actually ended up paying a little extra so that, in addition to shrinking our ship down this time, they're giving our ship the ability, permanently, they're giving it the ability to shrink down. So in the future, if we ever need to take our ship with us, we can essentially just put it in our pocket. But that's going to take 30 days. So we're actually going to stay on this current island for 30 days while they're working on shrinking, like, upgrading our ship with this resizing technology. And then we are going to fly, or teleport, back within the realms of the main capital. And from there, we'll be able to go back to the capital. I don't know if we'll actually go... We might go back to the capital itself. I'm not sure. But at least then we'll be closer to, like, the main... the main attractions. Instead of out on the outskirts of the world. Because really, normally the way that we would get ship upgrades is by defeating other ships and then, like, using those parts. I can definitely put that in a smaller container. Using those parts to upgrade our own ship. Like, that's kind of... We can't choose the upgrades we get that way. It's randomized, but that is, kind of how that works normally. We've been able to buy some things, but those have all, like, some upgrades, but those have all been, like, from specialized places. But that's how now our party has a pet goblin, who I think should be delegated to refilling our cannon during combat. So that we aren't wasting turns filling a cannon. But obviously that's up to Seth. It's his goblin. I think we named the goblin Loader, but I think we actually need to ask Seth's player. Because, like, technically that would be up to him. Anyways, that is all of my D&D rant, I think. Goblins, the compasses, I talked about the fuel, nearest island, and gambling. And now that we have to wait 30 days. So, that, yeah, it's been fun. I'm so happy. Like, this is probably the best thing about getting our new roommates, because it's our roommate who's the DM and who's running the D&D campaign, and I have wanted to be a part of a D&D campaign for so long. It's just never like worked out because of like, you know, scheduling conflicts, and like it's just hard when you have a kid to get out of the house with any sort of consistency. But now that's our roommate DMing, like it's at our house. We don't have to leave the house to do it. And I've enjoyed it immensely. But I think I will leave things off there. I'm pretty sure I kept it under 30 minutes, or close to 30 minutes anyways. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you another time. Bye.